Hi, everyone. My name is Penny Cowan, and I will be talking today on the discussion board for week one in Women in the Church. When I think about how societal norms and interpretations of Scripture influence my perceptions of women's roles, I sometimes laugh. Up until about 2 years ago, I would not even pray in public. I was raised in a setting where women didn't do that. If there were men present, women didn't pray, women didn't teach. We taught children and we participated in Bible study together, but we did not lead at all in any way, shape, or form. Um, I even attended a church for a little while that we had a woman co-pastor, and it took me a long time to be able to call her pastor. I did not look at her as a pastor. I looked at her as a teacher, and that was it. But over time, I began to get more comfortable. Um, God put me in a retreat about 2 years ago, and He gave me the boldness to pray in front of people, which I had never done. And within a week of me going to that retreat, I had always, read in front of church or sang in the choir or whatever, but I'd never been a leader. One Sunday, I was reading scripture to open our service, and God told me to pray to open the service, and I did. My husband's a pastor, and I had not even told him that God told me to do that. And he was blown away. He was happy. He was excited that I listened to God and did that. Since then, I have led women's conferences. I've even spoken at those conferences, um, and do occasionally speak now. And I'm reminded of the women in the Bible who were leaders and that they served God without fail. Jesus even had a woman that walked with him while he was walking on earth teaching, and she helped him and was right there with him and was very integral in his ministry. But, women such as Esther and Deborah and Ruth and Naomi, Mary and Mary Magdalene, they all were leaders. And as I read this week's reading for the Empowered Women text, it brought forth, how women in history, not just biblical history, have made such an impact. And I was inspired. Not only did they face hardships of sacrifice, but they strived for holiness. They had very little formal education, they had poor health care, and life was hard. Yet they overcame all of this to lead and teach. I enjoyed listening to our text emboldened. My book has not arrived yet, so I was not able to read, but I was able to listen this week's reading. And as I've let God lead me to see how women are important in the church, I agree with the author in the foreword that silencing the voice of women in the church is an injustice. God has gifted so many women, and as a church, we need to encourage women to listen to the calling God has for them and encourage them to step out into that calling. In one of my other classes recently, I pointed out that we don't need to focus on one or two verses of scripture. We need to look at the whole picture. That's where we get in trouble as Christians and a faith-filled people. We tend to focus on just a little bit when there's just a whole picture and a whole world of scripture there that we can glean from. Um, if we focus only on First Timothy, we could miss out on all of those other stories of greatness of women in biblical history and miss that women are important leaders too, and we need to embrace that. Looking forward to learning with you guys in this trimester and seeing where God leads us. See you guys.